last 2 weekends, I hosted a New Year Next Level You workshops, seminars, informational sessions, if you would say. And it was introducing the initiatives that I am having in 2016 to help individuals get from where they are to where they want to be, to take it to the next level. And 3 different sessions I had, 2 last weekend and 1 yesterday, and lots of common themes that came about with the participants there that I found interesting, and shared with a lot of the participants how it was a common theme among them, some of the things that they shared in the workshop as we talked about going to that next level. And so last night, later on in the evening, when I saw social media blowing up with the Steve Harvey incident, we'll call it, on Miss America, or Miss Universe, I should say, it really brought back to, I guess, the forefront the topic or the themes that were in several of those sessions. And I want to talk about those 2 themes tonight, one being vulnerability and the other being failure. So in those seminars, several of the participants expressed that one of the biggest barriers, and they didn't put it necessarily this way, but this is basically what it boiled down to, one of the biggest barriers that they had in just really going after their success is this fear of being exposed, this fear of kind of putting themselves out there. And I call that vulnerability. And vulnerability is one of the things that it's a paradox, because it's something that people try to oftentimes avoid at all costs, but it is so necessary for success. If you're going to be successful in anything, be it your career, be it relationships, especially relationships, be it going after whatever that passion you have in life and putting yourself out there, you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. So when I saw all the social media backlash that Steve Harvey was receiving last night, it reminded me of what we discussed in those seminars about the need to be just vulnerable out there. Because for Steve Harvey to have gone to the level that he's at now, for anyone to get to the level of success, you know, what is considered success, whatever their industry is, they have to allow themselves to be vulnerable. And vulnerability means sometimes you're going to be put on the hot seat, and sometimes you're going to goof up. Sometimes you're going to embarrass yourself. And when you can do that, and when you can understand that that's going to happen, and it's necessary for that to happen for you to continue to climb that ladder of success, then you can release yourself of the fear of that. And I tell the story a lot of times how in one of my first workshops that I did, it was a weekend retreat that I did. And I remember standing up, and it's a room full of women, and I'm discussing some topic. You know, I'm supposed to be the authority in the room discussing a topic. And while I'm discussing it, I think it was either the person who was co-facilitating with me or someone pointed out that I actually had my pants on backwards. Can you imagine that? And I can remember initially it was like a wave of embarrassment that kind of came over me, but then it turned into humor where I was able to even laugh at myself. And at that moment I realized, you know, if you can laugh at yourself, if you can really find just the ability to kind of blow off things that may have embarrassed you and made you want to run away and bury your head in the sand, you are one step closer to being just able to go out there and face whatever you need to face to just, again, get to that next level. So as embarrassing as that incident was last night for Steve Harvey, it's necessary. It's necessary for all of us to be willing to put ourselves out there, to make the mistakes, to sometimes fall on our face, because we're going to get back up. And that goes with failure too. Failure is a prerequisite to success. It's a prerequisite to success. I shared tonight on social media, one of my social media sites, that trust me, and you guys mark my words, that this incident, as tragic as it may seem, as devastating as it may seem to Miss Columbia, it's positioning her to probably be more successful than she would have been if she had actually gotten that crown. How many of you remember Vanessa Williams and how disgraced she was and having her title ripped from her? And I see those hearts coming because it's so true. And that was initially seen as something that was devastating. career ending, shameful for her, but that actually put her in a position that she's the most famous winner, even though her crown was stripped from her, that we've ever had. And so I want to just really impress on you guys that when you are able, and I see somebody says, I hope she does not do reality TV. Who is that? The Miss Columbia or someone else, whoever that is. But whatever their path is, go for it. May not work for us, but everybody has their own journey. But whatever it is that you are really wanting to go after, what you want to achieve, you gotta be willing to put yourself out there, and you gotta be willing to just be embarrassed sometimes, to fall on your face, and to be just and not know if it's all going to turn out right, because you're going to learn from it. You're going to learn, and you're going to learn from your failures too. Like I said, it's a prerequisite for success for us to fail. And I oftentimes will joke with my girls, my kids, and I'll tell them, get out there and start failing. And they'll look at me like, is she crazy? But I'm saying that for a reason, because it's necessary. That's how we learn. We learn from our failures. We learn from our mistakes, and we grow from being vulnerable. But the key is to not dwell on that. You cannot dwell on your failures. You cannot limit yourself because you're afraid of being vulnerable. And like I said, that's true in anything from going after your goals to relationships, because the most meaningful and harmonious relationships that exist out there are relationships where both parties allow themselves to be vulnerable, to be wide open, to be in a position where you could be hurt. When Steve Harvey puts himself out there on the stage in front of millions and millions of people watching all over the world, all over the world, then he's really putting himself in a position where he can be ridiculed, even if that had not happened. And you gotta be willing to do that. And that's one of the things I've had to learn over the years, is that, not everyone, I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I'm not going to be successful in everything I set out to do, but that should not limit me, because the more that I push myself, the more that I put myself in positions that are a little scary, that could be embarrassing, I know that's I allow myself to grow. I allow myself to expand and to become even more confident in those situations. But irregardless, we got to just understand that life is life, and we're going to have mistakes. Someone says, I needed to hear this. I struggle with it. Exposure, vulnerability. Dream celebrations. I wish you'd been at the workshops that I had the last 2 weeks, but if you did not, anyone who was not able to make the seminars, or if you're not in the metropolitan Detroit area, please join me tomorrow morning on Transformation Tuesday, because I'm going to be discussing my Next Level You 2016 Next Level You initiative, and even people out of state can take part in that, because I'll have abilities for you to do that if you're distant as well. We had one participant who actually flew in from Atlanta. She had actually gotten off the plane and came straight from the airport to the seminar, and she's planning on being part of the initiative as well. So it doesn't matter if you're not in the metropolitan Detroit area, but I want you to tune in tomorrow, because I'll be discussing this initiative, because one of the things that I challenged all the participants who are going to be part of this initiative is that you guys are going to learn to become comfortable with being vulnerable, with putting yourself out there, with being exposed, because it's so important. It's so important for you to just break out of that shell and to live a life in full bloom. Necessary. It's necessary. And especially for women, because one of the things I said is that women, oftentimes, we are taught not to be, don't make yourself too noticeable. Don't be too egotistical. Don't have too much confidence in yourself. And these are the same attributes that if a man carries on, then people are like, whoa, look at him. He's a go-getter. He's a successful person in his industry. So we have to challenge that with our own selves and start really challenging ourselves to be okay with being out there wide open. And again, I tell you guys, in the last few years, I've had to challenge myself to do that as well, to be able to do just any type of appearance, locally, nationally, television, radio. You have to be able to put yourself out there and be okay with it, and trust the process, because if you have any inkling in your soul that there's something you should be doing, there's some passion that you have, that's because you're capable of doing it. And you just need to get over that hurdle of being fearful. What if it doesn't work out? So Guys, I encourage you all to join me tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. sharp Eastern Standard Time for Transformation Tuesday, where I will be discussing this a little further and also the 2016 Next Level You initiative. And if you haven't already, join the In Full Bloom with Dr. Rose Facebook group. You can search it on Facebook. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff at Dr. Rose Moulton. You can follow me there, Instagram, I'm Dr. Rose Moulton, as well as Twitter also. So, see you guys in the morning, but just give that some thought. Failure and vulnerability are prerequisites for success. It's necessary. You got to get comfortable with being able to put yourself out there and fall if it happens, because as they say, a setback is a setup for a comeback. So, see you all in the morning. Bye-bye.